Good morning. Oh, I think that's the first time I've used my voice this morning. It's not Friday, it's Sunday, and I'm sitting here with my little CH2M coffee mug. Can you see that, or is that backwards? I'm not quite sure because I'm using the selfie camera. Yeah, so I'm sitting here with my mug of coffee. My cat is actually right here. And I didn't post on Friday. I've been feeling very introverted the past few days, and then I go out and I meet friends or do something, and I come back and I'm just even more feeling introverted than before. So I hadn't done my little Friday video, and I figured this morning, why I have energy right after I woke up, better late than never, right? So, yeah, I wanted to tell you about last week before we head into some of the Christmas and holiday stuff happening this week. So last week was actually a really important week for me because I've been working on this reservoir project for a while, which I've been telling you guys about. And it was the very first day that we started putting water in the reservoir. So previously it was just construction. Oh, bye, Katie. It was just construction and all of the other stuff that happens with a construction project, but it didn't actually have water in it. And so on Tuesday was what we call deliberate impoundment. So I'm not really sure if that's just a term we use in Texas. It's a term used by Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, TCEQ, and it refers to the first day that you impound water, put water into the reservoir. So Tuesday was deliberate impoundment. We had all the sign-offs from the state, and I was super excited about it. I kept talking about it on my Instagram, like, hey guys, it's deliberate impoundment day. And all of my coworkers were looking at me like I was crazy, like, we're just opening a valve. So because there's nothing in there, and we have water head, we're moving water from here into place down here. We call that head, or it's basically potential energy. We've got water up here and it can drain down here, so it's gravity flowing, and it's got a pressure head here and gravity flows into the reservoir. So yeah, we turned a couple valves, but it was kind of cool because water started bubbling into the reservoir. And actually, I've seen the reservoir more full than that previously, just because of rainstorms. We get a rainstorm, and because it's a basin meant to hold water, it holds a lot of that water. And the construction workers, the contractors, have had to go out and pump the water down so they could finish working. So I've actually seen more water in it than what we saw in that first half hour. But what's kind of cool is they opened the valves, and water, there was a little bit of water sitting in there, and it drained into the piping system, which was empty. So that's now full, and so we watched the water go down. It went down past the trash racks and into the piping system. And then as water started coming in on the other end of the piping system, and all that space, that interspatial area, and the pipes became full, and then started pushing water into the reservoir. And so we watched it go down and then come up. And I have a little video. I'm sitting on the soil cement steps with my camera, and I have this little video, and it looks like a still picture, but it's actually water is moving into the reservoir. So I wish I had a GoPro or something that I could just have done a full time lapse of the entire process of filling the reservoir, but I was not on top of it for that. So yeah, we have water going into the reservoir, and we turn it on in the mornings, we turn it off in the afternoon. We have a couple meetings a day to figure out how much we're going to put on it. We've got security cameras up everywhere, and so we can spy around the site. There's so many people on site this past week. All of our senior engineers, all the engineers, contractors, the client. We didn't get any press because, there's not a whole lot for PR. It's just a little bit of water bubbling in. We're not even using the pumps. But there's so many people on site just driving around, looking at all the geotech stuff, making sure everything's in order. And so we're sitting in the construction trailer with all these cameras, and they don't look like they're high-res cameras. They're just like those little security ones, the bulbs that you see in car garages or outside in gas stations or whatever. But you can zoom in quite far. So we'd sit in the office and it would be like, oh, who's walking in the reservoir? We'd like zoom in. You can see exactly who's walking around, what they're doing. Which is like, it's just a lot of fun having a lot of people on site. And I think I've said that before. I say that a lot. But it really is fun. You've got all these people that were working towards this goal for a long time. All the design, which started years ago, all of the submittals and RFIs and things we've been responding to for years and years during construction, all the blood, sweat, and tears. And now there's water going in the lake, which is really cool. Really cool. So that's happening. And I've kind of just been, running around like crazy like I normally do, working on a couple other projects, working on that project, making sure that all the geotech instrumentation is ready. So we've got a bunch of sensors, and even if you are a civil engineering student, you probably don't, you haven't learned about these because we don't actually teach these in our curriculum. As per last week's video when I talked about how our curriculum is too theoretical and not practical based. But anyway, we've got a bunch of open standpipes, so they're just PVC pipes that go in the ground, and they'll read what water level is, so that's groundwater level. And so we go in, we take a water level meter, and we tag, it's like a little diaphragm. Actually, this one's not a diaphragm, it's just a probe. When water goes past the probe, it completes the circuit, and it beeps. And so you put it down, it beeps, and it's hanging on a tape measure basically, and then you read off the tape measure like, oh, it's 21 feet to groundwater level. And I use those a lot in the groundwater world. Some of the geotechs hadn't actually seen them before, and so I got to teach them all my tricks about how to use the water level meter. One of the older engineers, he only looks at when the light beeps. He doesn't use his ears to hear when it's beeping. And so he kept telling me, like, just watch the light. It's much easier. It's much easier. And I'm like, no, it's really not if you have ears that work really well. Like, especially in Texas, where half the time you look at a screen and you can't see it because it's so bright out. And so you can tell this guy was from Pacific Northwest and was older. Poor guy. I'm stubborn, like, no, I'm just gonna listen for it. I used to do this, I did this for a year straight when I was an environmental engineer, and I do this all the time on well sites. But yeah, so that's the water level meter. We've got, for the open standpipes, we've got a bunch of tow drains, which those are just pipes that come out. So there's a rock layer in the embankment, and so when water comes, as it will, into the soil embankment, instead of being trapped there and creating lots of pore pressures, it can drain down to this rock layer and then hit these PVC pipes that are, sticking out of the rock layer and run out the PVC pipes. So we got the tow drains, and we're just measuring how much flow is out of them. So we put a bucket under and we time it and go, it looks like it's half a cubic foot per second. And we write it down and plot it up. We've got vibrating wire piezometers, which is the first time as a non-geotech that I've seen those. And I guess they're just these little probes that stick in the ground and are grouted in, and they've got wires that run out to a panel, and the panel collects the data. There's a data logger basically, and it sends it through radio signals into a cloud space, and so we can go online. And every 6 hours, those vibrating wire piezometers, they're probably diaphragms, so they take a reading of pressure across the diaphragm. I've not actually seen one. I need to go pull up the submittal because those were installed before I started on the project. So I go online every 6 hours. I can see what was reading across that diaphragm for pressure, and I can plot that up on a graph. or have somebody else spot it up on a graph. And we'll look at all of these graphs daily just to make sure that nothing is unusual or worrisome. And we'll do that daily for, the next 6 months. And then after that, probably weekly. Having a dam is a lot of maintenance. It's a lot of work. So, yeah, I walked around. I did lots of tow drain measurements, lots of looking at the data and plotting data, helping the geotechs, lots of figuring out who's got to be on site when. Lots of sitting in meetings and writing reports, and which is usual for my job. And then we'd go out to dinner in the evenings. So we all went out to dinner one evening, and we're at an Italian place, and one of the older geotech engineers, he's like, well, instead of us all just, getting whatever, do you guys want to share a bottle of wine? We're like, yeah, sure, that sounds great. The waiter, this kid who's probably in high school, and didn't know a whole lot about wine. He was just like, well, that's great. We'll get you guys a wine list. They're aged. We're trying to get rid of them. We don't want them anymore, so they're really cheap. We're like, okay, really cheap wine. That's fine. So he brings over this list of the really cheap wines, and it just has the names, and we're asking oh, do you know where this one's from? And he's like, no, I could probably Google that. Okay, what about this one? Do you know what's in this one? He's like, no, but I can definitely Google that for you. Well, finally, one of the girls is like, can we just see the bottle? Maybe if we saw the bottle, we know where it's from, or what type of wine it is. So he just takes this handful of wine bottles and brings us all these bottles. So I've got this picture of this senior engineer with all of these wine bottles, and he's got his glasses out and he's reading all the wine bottles and asking. And thank God we're the only people in the restaurant, because we were probably really annoying. So we ended up with a couple bottles of wine, and then at the end, I was asking him about what was vegan, and he was like, well, do you have any allergies? I think this is vegetarian. Do you have any allergies? The old guy was just like, yeah, she's vegan. And I was just like, oh no, just bring me a salad. Yeah, so then we were getting desserts, and we're all sharing desserts, and our geotechs cutting it and handing it out to everybody after an hour of us just eating and listening to stories about one of the guys he's a hydraulics engineer, and he has a dam on his property, and so he found a water right, and then he created another, it's designing another off-channel reservoir. And he's using all of the people in the dam industry. We're a very large company, and we do a lot of dam work, and we have very highly specialized, awesome dams engineers, and he's got them all working on his personal dam. And having them come over and go hunting on his property and go skiing. So we're talking about all these stories about building this dam on his property. Yeah, so we're eating dessert, and finally at the end I was just like, hey, can I get one check? Because I guess in this project, even though I'm probably the youngest one, I also am more the project management, since I'm the assistant PM. Even though they're way more experienced and older, I'll pick up the check and expense it, and so not everybody has to expense pieces of it. And it confused the waiter so much. You can see he could not understand that these guys that were senior engineers were running the group and were the patriarch, but then I was like, yeah, I'm paying for it. It was, the whole dinner was so funny. I would wish that there's a couple other people that didn't show up because they were working late. But I was like, you guys missed it. We had quite the wine selection. And of course the wine that was $14 for the bottle was so sweet. I couldn't even finish my glass. It was so bad. It's just like, I'm gonna have a headache tomorrow if I finish this, and I need to work tomorrow. So yeah, that was on site, and then I left a day early to come back and do a lot of volunteering for Girls Empowerment Network, Jen. So this week was Career Week, and they had a bunch of people from the industry come around and talk to the girls, and then I had a coffee with somebody who runs, I guess, some of those initiatives, and she works at the office here in Austin. So I sat with her, and she's looking for new ways to connect me more into this sphere of like how I want to help volunteer with them, which is more tech based. Like, I've got this background in technology and STEM, and I can help to tell people about what actually civil engineers do and what a career in STEM might be, what type of schooling, and what you're getting yourself into, and maybe help relieve some of the anxiety that people have around trying to figure out their career path when they're in high school. So I talked to her, and she gave me some ideas, and she was gonna share my blog with some of the Gen girls, and yeah, it was a good day. Lots of volunteering that day, and somebody's yelling outside. And then I set up my Christmas tree. It's actually just like my plant that's always here, and I got really lazy and I hung a bunch of ornaments on it. And I thought I had stockings somewhere, but I couldn't find those. And yeah, so this is the extent of my Christmas decorating. I used to be really good at planning and setting up my home and decorating, but it seems that I've gotten very lazy. I did put a little snowman light in the kitchen that you turn it on. It's like a wax melter. So that's in the kitchen, and I have these little smelling oils that you put into a vaporizer, and it steams in the bathroom. So the bathroom smells very merry. Cinnamon and fig. And the kitchen looks alright. Looks normal. Oh, I did put out some dishcloths that have little snowmen on it. And I have my snowman light and my impromptu tree. That's alright. I'm going out of town a bunch, so if I was here more, I might put up an actual tree, but what are you gonna do? I got other stuff to do. So, anyway, Sunday morning, I'm drinking my coffee, which I think is probably cold now. I don't know. It's tepid. So I'm gonna go warm up my coffee, meet Lauren later to do introvert bubbles, where we sit at a coffee shop together, but we work on our own things. Introvert bubbling. Yesterday I met Tay, and we did a lot of planning for Water for People stuff, which is a charity I really like, and we're doing Amplify Austin next year in February, on Amplify Austin Day. We're gonna do a power hour for Water for People to try to raise some funds. So Tay and I went and planned that yesterday a little bit. So yeah, meeting friends, being more extroverted than I wanted. Maybe it's because everybody was on site, and I became the listener role as assistant PM. Because, of course there's problems, or somebody is aggravated that somebody else said something about their design, or like somebody's always all peeved about something, and they would just come to me and tell me about it. And then they would leave and be like totally cool now that they've told somebody about it, and now I'm stressed out because I have all of their stress. So it was a lot of listening to people complain, or listening to people's feelings, and then it just took a lot of energy being on site. Maybe that's why I am feeling the way I am. And then I just like drive home and listen to podcasts for hours on end. And I get home like, I'm ready for bed. Cat's like, yup, let's go to bed. It's treat time. So anyway, now I'm rambling for sure. So I'm gonna go. Have a lovely Sunday, and I'll see you probably on Friday. Bye.